Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to Friends with Fertility. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so excited today to be talking to Tara Lipinski. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I mean, most everyone who's listening probably knows you as an Olympic ice skater. So congratulations on that. We've had an Olympian here before talking about a similar experience. And I think that it's such a unique, it's unique for everybody, but I would imagine more so for somebody who has trained for their whole life at an extreme level to be able to know that their body can do all things at the highest achievement worldwide. And now here you are in this situation that you find yourself with fertility.
Yeah.
How does that land for you? I mean,
It's hard because, for my whole life I thought if I worked hard enough, trained hard enough, then I'll achieve the dream. I will, be able to follow through on whatever I set my mind to or my body to. And just that push, very aggressive approach was what is all I really knew as an athlete.
yeah,
You fall down, you get up, you keep going. And, you realize very quickly when there's failure in IVF and infertility you know, that it's not up to your mental strength or your physical strength. It's your body. It's a biological thing that's happening that you have no control over. So, I think for me, I liked applying some of the lessons I learned as an athlete, and it was just what I fell back on very easily, um, which kind of felt like home and helped me cope emotionally getting through 5 years of infertility. But I think I also, throughout the process, learned patience and acceptance and all these things that I'm not very good at.
I don't know that many of us are, but
Yeah.
this journey certainly tests all of those things for sure. So for anyone who's listening who doesn't know your fertility story and or this amazing podcast that you and your husband have now, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening and how you got here and all the things?
So my husband and I decided to do this podcast. We started about a year ago, and we knew at some point we wanted to speak on our journey, and it just definitely took me a long time, 5 years, to be able to do that and to be in a more hopeful place now. I think that's important for me to mention because it's many women going through years of loss or failure. When you're in the trenches, it's really hard to talk about it. And you kind of keep everything close to your chest because maybe that's your way of coping and dealing with the unknown of the future. And I think that that's totally okay. And if I had to do it again, I would do the same thing again. So
Right.
I'm only able to talk about this because we're in a different place. In a
Right.
different phase where it has allowed me emotionally and psychologically, the strength to do that, but I think we want to do it on our own terms. We self-published a podcast, just because we were like, this is for us. And I'm so passionate about this world. It's taken over my life for the last 5 years, and everyone that is a part of this community or has been touched by infertility or, long journeys with IVF, I feel like I have this connection and bond, even though they're strangers and I don't know them. But I'm so passionate about it that I felt like, if I could at this point share some of the things we went through, it would make other women feel seen and validated, and the feelings that I had that maybe they had, they won't feel as alone, or they won't think they're crazy for having these feelings. And I think that's really important because I felt many times in my own journey crazy or, um, alone.
Definitely. Isn't it amazing as well that no matter where you are in the world, and I'm sure you get people contacting you from countries all over the place as well, that the feelings and the emotions that go through our bodies as women that are going through this are the same.
Yes.
I just had a client this morning in Saudi Arabia. It's the same as somebody in middle America
Yeah.
who is going through it. And I get goosebumps saying that because it doesn't it doesn't discriminate anything, you know.
No.
And these experiences, as I was reading from your losses as well, about just the expecting, I don't want to use the word expecting, but in some ways kind of having this inner knowing of, is there going to be a heartbeat, and that
Right.
anxiety that comes before that, right? Like those of us that have had that know, like I remember very vividly my husband and I standing outside the clinic of like, I don't want to go in. I
Yeah.
really don't want to go in, you know?
No, I mean, it really gets to the point where, even now, I feel like medical appointments in general, just, I mean, there are, you don't throw around the term trauma or PTSD lightly, but I think, you know, through the therapy I've done, like this is a legit problem, I think, for so many women and couples that after they've gone through this, it affects your life and world in so many ways. And even when you're in it, you don't want to go back to that same appointment because you remember exactly all the smells and all the feelings and all the, reactions. And you just like walk out of that office in a daze thinking like, is this real life? And like no one wants to go and repeat that. And then when it repeats itself, another time or another time or another time, I mean, it just adds this layer of, trauma.
100%. I was at a conference last year, and it's for assisted medical reproductive doctors, and a lot of it is on their research that they're doing in the field, et cetera. And one of the sessions that I was in, they were talking about the losses, and there is really you're hard pressed to find another situation where you experience a loss or a death that you have to go back to the scene of that crime, essentially, right? Like if somebody got in a car accident, they could not take the 405 again, right? They
Right.
can go around, or
Right.
they could take a side street.
Right.
But we have to go back to that same place unless we change clinics, right?
Right.
In the same situation week after week, putting ourselves back into all the experiences, as you said, the sights, the smells, the people of where that happened to us. And we don't really have the society behind us letting us feel like that is a real loss, a real death, to the
Right.
extent that if somebody lost their partner or
Right.
their parent or something, where we would be like, oh my god, please, you do not need to come back here, like
Right.
do whatever you need to do to heal from this or whatever. But we're like, nope, okay, next month ready to come
They
back
say
and
come
like
back
start
on cycle
again.
day 3. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's crazy. I've actually never even thought about that part of it, and it is so true. I mean, there was like one room I always went into, and it was like, I mean, you go back to the scene of the crime
Yeah.
essentially. And I think, that's like another part of the podcast we touch on, obviously my journey, but then all the things that come along with infertility or IVF. And it's even when you have these losses, like you said, society sort of, views it, I think, in a way of like women have periods and give birth and have miscarriages, and they go on and move on. And it's something we don't really talk about, and we don't really make it that big of a deal because it happens. And it's just like, you really do. I've always thought about that. I came across a quote once of, people just don't know what to say in those moments either. So it's like if someone lost their sister, you would never say, and obviously that's a different level of trauma than losing, an embryo or a baby. But is it, when you're
I
losing,
know.
like a
When you're in
baby,
it, it certainly doesn't feel like it.
women that are giving, giving birth to, I mean, it's just like, I can't even like all of
I
these
know.
different levels um, of loss. But you don't say like, oh, better luck next time, or at least you had her for a little bit, and it's like
Right.
all these sayings that I think happen in this world because people just don't talk about it enough. So it's like, oh, at least you got pregnant, and it's like, well, it doesn't really make me feel much better.
For sure. And I don't know if it surprised you after your first loss, but it really surprised me of those feelings that you did have of shame and guilt and weirdness. And you're like, oh my God, okay, this is why people don't talk about this.
Right. And
Because
yeah.
logically, it's not your fault, but there's something where you're like, but is it really not my fault because my body wasn't able to do this? Or
I just think
it
it's shame, I think like I felt it. It's just like you feel a little less than the person that could do it.
right.
And, then having to admit that feels yucky. And
Right.
until the conversation changes and it really becomes so clear that there's not like, ooh, someone's fertile, someone's in barren or infertile, or there's more um openness and actually education about what's happening and why things are happening, do I think like then there will be more support.
Right. And I think the more awareness of people like you coming out to tell their stories helps to educate the
Yeah.
public, right? So that when the next person is going through it, they're like, "Oh, okay, I understand. This is kind of what to expect. This is fairly normal,
Right.
unfortunately." And it doesn't make it less painful for you when it's happening to you, but it does help you to figure out how I can normalize this in my head so that you don't feel so alone in the process, and know that there's hope, right? That's what
Right.
I was looking for in it, of just,
Hope.
okay, yeah,
Like an
like
ending to whatever this journey is that you would feel comfortable with. And I think there's so many different endings. And I think on this podcast, that's why I really wanted it to play out like it did, because like we were one of those rare couples that just hit like every roadblock imaginable, kind of in that 1 to 2% of failed retrievals, no genetically normal embryos. Then we got genetically normal embryos. Then we had failed transfers. Then we had miscarriages. Then we had septums and scar tissue. And, we just like kind of hit so many different things that I hope that people that are listening can relate to each part of this journey. And just also then know that, you know, whatever avenues you decide to take from there, just because I got right back in and kept going, that doesn't always mean that's the answer. Cause I think there's a lot of, you know, annoying comments out there of like, just get back out there, or just, and it's like sometimes people don't want to, or they want to move on with their life, and maybe they want to adopt, maybe they want, to live a child free life because they've gone through this, and then
right.
they're like ready to move on, and none of it is losing.
Absolutely. And I know it played a big part in my keeping going was the age, right? I felt like I didn't have the time to
Right.
just
The t
sit back
the
and
clock is
relax.
ticking is how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I really advocate for people to take the time after the losses and to take the breaks, that was something for me starting at 40. I did not have on my side. It was like, okay, how soon is my HCG going down so that I can try again? Really
Yeah,
was
that
like,
like, and oh my gosh, that's
that's
a
the only
whole thing in
option.
itself, like, thinking all day long, like, "Oh, is it going down? Is it going down?" And, like, praying that the next blood test it's down, you
I
know?
know. I think at what point my doctor was like, "You're getting a little obsessed about this," but I was at that point
Yeah,
because I didn't have the time to
time.
wait for it. And everybody has their thing, right? For me, it was the age. For somebody else, it could be something else. And everything is valid, right? Whether you have a child and you want another one, that doesn't discount it. Like whatever your thing is, you are validated, and your wants and your needs and all the things around it, you're allowed to feel that way. And I think we're not told. And even if, to your point, if you decide you want to go a child free life, that's allowed too. You can change your
Right.
mind and
Right,
decide
yeah, it's
that.
whatever, yeah, whatever you want, especially after you've been through a journey like this, it's like, unless you walk in those shoes, no one should really have opinions about it.
Right. And I think just standing in that, because again, our society traditionally is like, okay, you got to get married and have 2.5
Right,
kids and,
right.
have the white picket fence. And maybe that's not for you,
Yeah.
especially after you see what that could look like for you, and or maybe financially it's not
Right.
feasible
Right.
or
I mean,
whatever it
that's like a
is.
huge part of it too. I feel so lucky that I've been able to continue these treatments, but and I know that there's insurance companies that are covering more and more fertility, but and there's states that are more favorable to that, but on a whole, these treatments are so expensive, and so many people can't afford to keep doing them. And I'm going to definitely make it my mission. Right now I'm even just cold calling places. I reached out to Baby Quest, which is an incredible organization, which gives away fertility grants. And I just hope to bring awareness to that as well, because building a family or wanting to build a family should never, it should be an option if you want it. And it's so sad that in like women's reproductive health we don't always get those options.
Absolutely. And I think, again, back to bringing awareness, I think more and more our governments are going to be pushed to make the right decision in that, and have an overall, you know, platform, so to speak for our country, because right now it's state to state and it varies
Right.
depending on all kinds of things, which in and of itself seems ridiculous. But I think there are, to your point, there are grants out there. If anyone's listening and you feel like you're in a hard spot, there are a lot of grants out there. We actually have a whole list on our website of where you can find things, but
Great.
ask around because there are certain options. And I think a lot of times people just automatically assume, oh, I can't afford it.
Right.
But um, look into it and ask other people. And there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. And there's people now that want to help you. So don't give up hope if that is your hope and dream
Yeah.
to do that. So when you had your losses, did you know anyone that had gone through it before you? Like, did you feel, I know you said that you weren't really telling anyone what you were going through, but when you had the losses specifically, did you then tell your family and
So
friends
I
about
reached
that?
out to people and then I realized they had losses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't
Hmm.
we never talked about it before, but then if I like put them on the spot of like, oh my goodness, I'm having a miscarriage, it was like, oh, I had one too.
Right.
Um so there wasn't many people in my circle, but I did have one, and she was my saving grace to just get me through, and we were close so I could ask all the questions. But every type of miscarriage is different, so I've had many different ones where I just didn't know what to expect,
Right.
and that's the hardest part because you hear, oh, it's so common for women to have miscarriages, and I talked about that on our episode today of just like I didn't know what to expect, and in some of them, and it's scary because you're so focused on the pregnancy, but then there's also a part of you that's like a little afraid, like, well, what's going to happen to my body? And, what is this going to be like emotionally?
That is the big question, and you really don't ever know. And I think each one also is different. Some
Yeah,
people, it gets easier each time. And for some people, it's harder each time
yeah,
because you're like, what the F,
yeah,
what is going on here? Why isn't this working? And I think, again, allowing people to have that space and time to heal that we don't give ourselves. I feel like we don't give ourselves, but also because I think the society we live in, like you get more time off from work for COVID if you than having a miscarriage,
right.
and
Which is
is
just
insane.
baffling.
Yeah. And I think people don't know, to your point about the finances, some people are told, well, you have to pass it at home because you can't afford to do a DNC or something, which again, that's crazy.
Right,
Without any explanation of what to expect and how what's going to go on if you take the pill version versus
right.
do a
Yeah,
DNC and
exactly.
all of that. And it really again goes back to the education around things of what potentially could happen. This is plan A, plan B, plan C. These are what to expect. You could bleed very lightly, you could be bleeding for months,
Right.
and then the support people around them, right? I remember my husband, we like it looked like somebody died in the bed. I was bleeding so much,
I know.
and that's scary for
It's
everybody involved.
Yeah, it's scary, and you just like you don't know how long it's gonna go on. Like all of
Yeah,
these things that you're just not informed on, and it's crazy because you feel like you go to like the dentist and they'll like give you a long list of what to expect, but then
right.
it's like, oh, you're gonna possibly go through this traumatic experience at home, and good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know how it goes or
Yeah,
not,
or
like
not.
not
Yeah,
not even really concerned either way. Well, I'm so glad that again you're bringing this to the forefront for so many people on the platform that you have, because not only from your perspective but your husband's perspective, and how is he doing through all of it and being
he's
that
hanging in
support
there.
for you?
We had definitely different approaches. He was much more just like, oh, we'll work out, and oh, like it's fine. And I was the, worry ward one, researching everything, one really like needing to stay on top of everything. And, we eventually found a good rhythm of him understanding that that was like my process. And, um, I think it was great doing this podcast because I've heard from so many women that are like, oh, my husband's watching, or I'm having my husband watch, or my partner watch. And you know, we had the same sort of differences, like I was
Right.
like doing all this crazy research, and my husband's like, "Oh, we'll be fine." And I think that there's a way to bond through the two of us, Todd and I, going through our experience and now having perspective, to kind of like look back on our journey. And just hearing Todd talk about it, I just find really fascinating, and hopefully, eye opening for other partners going through this journey or starting this journey.
Yeah, I love that you guys did it together because I think oftentimes they get left out of
Yes.
the whole process. And I always say from Dave's perspective, he just wanted it to be better for me. He just
Yep.
wanted it to all be okay for me, really. And it wasn't so much about getting the kids and whatever. It was more of just like
Yeah.
make it better, make her
Yeah.
smile again, make,
That was yeah. That was
and
Todd too. It was just like, I just want to see my wife happy again. Like, well, let's have this life where,
yeah.
we can enjoy it and not be thinking about fertility.
It literally consumes you all
Consume.
day, every night. And I remember thinking and saying to him, I just want to have other conversations. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be talking about this anymore. Like, can we just
Yeah.
move on with this from our
I
life
know.
and like
I know.
get it in the rearview mirror and move
But
forward?
it's so
Because
hard to do that when you're in it, because like
so
it's like
hard.
you're in the little hamster wheel in your head and you're just like, I need to talk to someone about this or I'm going to
Yeah.
scream.
Yeah. And was he kind of your go to as far as that goes? Because you mentioned you had a therapist. When I was going
Yeah.
through it, even the therapist had I only went to one appointment with a miscarriage one, and there was no dialogue between us. So I came out of there crying more than when I started because I was like, I'm looking for her to like give me some hope in this and tell me, don't worry, I've had kids after it. And what I was just, it was not helpful. And now that I show up every day to help people on their journey, that was the first thing that my husband said was, oh my God, we would have like given anything to have somebody to have you to help them through this other than me. Cause he's like, I don't know what to say to you at
Yeah.
times, like
Yeah.
he's the best guy in America, but
Yeah.
he's not in the same position that I am.
Yeah, and I was really lucky with, I didn't go to like a specialized fertility grief, counselor or therapist, but I found my therapist just it was a huge help. She would be able to, calm me down, give me perspective, validate my feelings and all of these emotions I was having. Because sometimes I would be like, am I too sad? Has it been too long? Why do I still have this? Why can't I sleep? And it's then, having a professional or having someone, you know, talk you through those emotions and like letting you know it's okay. Like, this is part of the process.
Right. I quote a Mayo Clinic study all the time from 2013 that showed someone who's going through the fertility process is the same stress level as a cancer patient. And I feel like the reason that it's so important for people to hear that is it does validate all of those things.
Right.
Like there was a study done that really proved that.
Right.
So
Right.
you're not going out of your mind. You are totally justified to feel all the emotions that you're feeling and getting somebody to support you through that, knowing that whether it's 6 years, 8 years, 6 months, it's a short period of time in the bigger picture, even though it feels like forever.
Right.
And having that additional support just helps you become more successful as a person going through
Yeah.
life during the
And just
process.
getting through it, because it's so hard to get through it to begin with, to just get yourself back up and go to this clinic again. So
Yeah,
I think, surrounding yourself with people that at least try to really understand
right.
what you're going through.
I think that's such a key word that you say there because, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't know what to say, but their intentions are good.
Right.
And I see a lot of friendships broken or families broken because maybe somebody said the wrong thing, but they didn't intend to. They just don't know any better.
They just don't know. And that's like the huge thing. And I always like caveat everything I say with that, because there are really annoying things people will say to you, when you're going
Right.
through this. But they don't know, and it's an uncomfortable situation. And again, until fertility, infertility, loss, miscarriages is such it is more of a open subject and less taboo, and less shame that circles around it, then I think people will kind of know
Right.
what to do, but now people don't talk about it enough to know what to do.
Right. And I encourage people be honest with them and say, I appreciate that, but it actually makes me feel kind of crappy when you said
Right.
that, right? And
Right.
it would be better if you said X. Then they can next time, and if somebody approaches them, they know better, right? We
Right.
don't know better until we're told. So
Right.
keeping that dialogue open and being gentle with the people around you, I think, is important because most of the time the intentions are good and
Are
they are
good. Yeah,
trying. Yes. What's some advice that you would give someone who's kind of heading down this path now?
I know. It's hard. I would say that, educate if you want. Like, obviously, everything is so personal, but educate yourself, find that infertility IVF community online, surround yourself with people that will hear your stories, hear your fears, hear your worries. I think keeping it all to yourself will just you'll drown, especially if it's a really, like, if you're a long hauler like me. And I think you just need to find that circle that will support you through this, because it's so unpredictable and the failures hit so hard, and there's really no perfect recipe. So it's like whatever you're feeling in the moment that you think can make your heart feel a little better, whether it's, after a failure and a glass of wine that you're looking forward to. It's those little things that got me through. Um, because I don't really have advice for how to take this on, because it sucks.
It
you
does
know?
that.
And for
It
anyone
does.
starting it, don't worry. These journeys are all not like this.
Yeah.
Rely on stats and statistics. Most people go through IVF, and within two, retrievals or two transfers, they're bringing home a baby. So there's so much hope to be had with IVF. So it's not to scare you, because hopefully you'll end up in that percentage. But if you don't, definitely surround yourself with people that can lift you up.
And what was your diagnosis? You have endo, correct? Or had?
Yeah, I have endo. I mean, I've had two surgeries. I probably need another one. We just hit every obstacle. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really insane if you listen to the podcast how it goes down. But from endo to septums to scar tissue from DNCs to, just one thing after the other. My husband getting COVID and having such this crazy fever, it messed up two of our cycles because his sperm's fine, but all the sperm on that, just like everything arrested from it. It's just like, there we kind of hit every bump in the road on this journey, and I don't know, we're still standing somehow.
Do you feel like you're at a point where you can say, "Okay, I know why I was put down this road," or are you still like, "Why? What is the lesson here? What's the deal?"
Yeah, it's hard for me sometimes. I go back and forth on that, of like, this was meant to be for this reason, or I don't know if I was meant to go down this road. To be honest, I think, like, I really wish I never had to go down this
Of
road.
course, yes.
Um, but I do take it that, like, every win is a win, and every, obstacle that we overcame, like, built strength in me and bonded me and my husband in a way that, going through hard things together, and when you can make it through, is, I think, a very special thing. So there's a lot of things that came out of it that, um, I'm grateful for. I'm not grateful for going through it. I'm
Right,
just like one of those people that I'm like, yeah, no, not meant to be. But
right,
because we went through it, I do see, how we've changed as people, how I've learned more patience, how I've learned acceptance. And I do think that, um, when I become a mother, I will really appreciate this process of raising a child. Not that no one else does, but I do think when you go through this for as long as you we have, it's almost this next level awareness of how magical it is. I was talking to
right.
a friend who went through IVF, long, long road, and she was saying, like, the other day she has two kids, and they were like poop everywhere, and her husband's like, "Oh my god!" And then, like, later, he just commented, he's like, "Amy, you were smiling the whole time," and she's like, "Yeah, because, like, this is still awesome,
Right,
And, like, she's like,
right,
"I never forget that I just wanted the poop on me for so long, and
right,
that wasn't even an option."
right. Yeah. It does change. How can it not change you, right?
Right.
From that perspective. But also, for anyone who, when you are on the other side, I think that sometimes we feel like I don't have the right to say that it's hard at times,
Right.
right? And so I just want to say that too, like, just because
It's
you
still
have
hard.
that, it is still hard, and it's still okay to say I need help. And you can still be obsessed and love your kids so much
Right.
and be freaked out that there's poop everywhere and
Yeah.
annoyed
Yeah.
and whatever,
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh, so it is such a strange road to go down, the fertility and
No,
fertility
I
journey.
know.
And the reason I asked that, are you able to see that kind of silver lining through it? Because I think sometimes when you're in it, you can't yet. You
Right.
basically want to, no, F off. No, I cannot, right? Like, this
Yeah.
sucks. Everything about it is. And I it's sometimes it's a stretch to try to get there, but also there always is a bigger reason to everything in our life, right? We can always look back and connect the dots and be like,
Right.
"Oh, that's why I met so and so, or that's how that happened,"
Right.
or
Right.
whatever it may be. And when you're in it, it just seems like a big tangled up mess. And I'm glad that our paths connected today, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share your story and
Oh,
get
thank
people
you.
to listen to your podcast and relate, because again, it doesn't matter where you're from, what you're doing. If you've been down the road, you can relate to the feelings and thoughts and situations that everyone's
Yeah.
going through.
Yeah, it's been nice to connect to all. I mean, people that have been through IVF 20 years ago, people that are going through it now, people that I am getting, like my friends are going through it, my sister's going through it. I'm watching to like
Oh,
learn how to, be a better person for them. I think it's just people that are going through grief and loss in other areas of life. I think hopefully, feelings are being heard and seen and validated, because that's I think the point of the podcast.
do you feel like the professional in your group now, that you're like, I can tell you everything you need to know about?
I mean, I could become an embryologist. I really I feel like that's my next third career. Like that's where
Right.
I'm going.
Yeah, which is totally fascinating, by the way, I
It
feel
is.
like, right?
It truly is.
I'm obsessed with all things fertility, and
Yes.
especially that, because I'm like, oh my God, they're the first babysitters that like these kids have, is just watching these embryos grow and whatever, which
Yeah.
is so cool. Well, again, thank you for your time and joining us tonight. And how can people find and listen to your podcast and follow your story?
So you can listen to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's iHeart, Apple, Spotify. Spotify has the video version. We also are putting up the video version on my YouTube, so Tara Lipinski YouTube. But really, anywhere you listen to your podcast, and obviously follow my Instagram, and it keeps you up to date on what episodes. We're pretty far into the journey now, but whoever is watching this and listening, I kind of say on the podcast, DM me, message me. And I've been connecting with so many women, and it's been the most rewarding part. And everyone's been so supportive. They're out there subscribing, rating, leaving messages. And, I think that we all really want the infertility and IVF community to find this podcast, to hopefully, give them whatever they're looking for out of it. So that's my biggest goal.
Well, I'm sure you will reach that goal. I have no doubt. I can't
Thank
wait to see how everything unfolds for you and your husband. And thanks again for being here tonight.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.